This is a typical computer class in a mixed school. But there is something missing. There are no girls here.
There is one thing that is almost certain in the near future and the long-term future, and that is computers, in some form or another, will play a very central role in our society. Knowledge of computing and information technology will be a source of power. Yet already there are differences emerging in terms of access to computers, which could lead to the virtual exclusion from this power of a vast number of our population, and most of those will be girls.
Although computers are available in the classroom, it is the boys who mainly use them. Girls account for only 20% of those studying computers for a qualification. The largest use of computers in schools is with maths and science subjects, subjects that girls tend not to specialise in. Whilst girls do own computers at home, they are in a minority. 80% of home computers are bought for boys.
Oh, we've got one more left. Oh, have we? Hang on, think about it.
Many people, even teachers, feel that girls are just not interested in computers.
I think it's partly to do with the fact that women or girls find there's nothing to sympathise with in a computer. It's a cold, soulless machine, and women, I feel, are much more tender or sympathetic creatures, and they can find nothing in common with a computer.
I think it's good. It's good help, handy to have around.
What sort of things do you do with it?
I play games on it and stuff, and sometimes I read the books, try and learn some of the stuff about it when I've got the time. I've got a lot of different games that I enjoy.
Try this.
Oh, did I?
When they first went into the schools, they were brought into the maths department. This was because the mathematicians were the ones who felt that they were the people to teach it. No one else knew much about computers. And mathematics was a boys' subject. And so girls saw computers going into the maths department and immediately linked the two in their minds and thought, well, it's something else for boys.
The association between computers and men begins in school at an early age.
You deal with it in exactly the same way as you have.
Even in primary schools, men dominate computers. At this primary school, there are only 2 male teachers. One is the headmaster. The other is the teacher in charge of computers. This pattern is reflected across the country. The computer has become strongly associated with male maths and science teachers teaching what appears to be a male subject. And it's been found that the way in which science is taught discourages girls.
They start off the introduction to science by saying science is very dangerous and you've got to be very careful. And boys take to that. They ask questions when they're introducing a subject like, have you ever smashed a transistor radio to pieces? Or the sorts of things that boys do but not girls do. So right from the beginning, science is constructed as something that seems to be a masculine activity rather than something that's for girls.
Pamela Geisler is a mathematician and the managing director of a successful commercial software company, which she founded herself.
And I think women have a fear of technology, and I think that society doesn't encourage them to break down those barriers. I play little games sometimes if there's something I don't know about the hardware. I often go and ask 2 or 3 of the men in the organisation whether they know the same thing. The reality is they usually don't know the answer, but the difference between them and me is that they have more confidence in experimenting or just trial and error.
Do you think that there are any differences in programming ability between men and women?
No, I see no reason why there should be, and I've never seen any evidence that there is. The female programmers that I've known, and I've known quite a few of them, have equal ability with any men that I have, that I've seen, the same spread of abilities. I see, other than the early educational process that goes on, that brainwashes women to think that they shouldn't do some of those jobs, I see no reason why they shouldn't be as good as men and equally represented.
At school, it's not thought important for girls to know about maths, science and technology. In a survey of secondary school teachers, 60% responded that they thought science and technology was essential for boys for their future careers, compared with only 25% saying that it was important for girls. This kind of prejudice is very deeply rooted, although often quite unintentional.
Would you like to take one of the case study sheets and then we can look at...
These teachers are participating in an often used exercise to reveal the unconscious prejudice about children's future lives. The teachers have been split into two groups. Their task is to discuss the future of a pupil. Both groups have the same brief description of the child, the difference being that for one group, the child is called Dennis, and for the other group, Denise. The first group discusses Dennis.
He's got 4 O-levels. We don't know what his parents will be like, but possibly his parents may want him to stay on. There could be an awful lot of pressure on him to stay at school. And if he is ambitious, then people might well feel that they could use this to sort of encourage him to stay on, because we could say, right, go on and get good A-levels or something along these lines and build a better career.
Don't you think that he has quite a lot to offer? I mean, he has some academic standards and his sort of personal profile would sell him and give him a good opportunity, however limited the opportunities actually were.
I could imagine him going into a further education college perhaps and taking more of a vocational, something very much directed at one particular job perhaps, a vocational course of some sort.
Yes, I think as he's ambitious, he will be looking to train to do something specific.
Yeah.
Yes. I think he will know what he wants to do.
What is Denise likely to be doing 1 year after leaving school? And at what age would you expect?
With the same information, the discussion in the group examining the girl Denise takes a very different direction.
Okay, so if you'd like to take that up now.
I think personally that she would be the type of person to go in for something like a hairdressing course. And, you know, she's ambitious, she wants to earn money. By 30 years of age, I'd say that she'd be running her own hairdressing salon or in partnership with somebody, something like that.
I think you might tend to think that would be a good career for her, but with different advice, she could cope with something very different and even better than that for herself.
She's got O-level maths and English plus 2 others. If we could start with that as the basis of what she could possibly do, given those qualifications.
I still think a personality could be far more important than educational qualifications.
It's the helping people that I like. I find someone like that would tend to go into nursing or NNEB courses, something like that.
I think if you've got to come to some sort of conclusion about it, I mean, that's, you know, you've got to sort of pick on certain things, haven't you? Design, for instance. I mean, she's good looking, she's ambitious, she wants to...
But it could be well-liked by staff boy who's good-looking, careful and persevering. You're not going to say, oh, she should be a hairdresser or a nurse. Those are just, it's just framed like that so that you can see, you know, we all plot out little careers for her. She ought to be advised to stay on and further her education.
Right, now you know what's been happening. We gave you the same worksheet with Denise changed to Dennis. In the first group, the main focus was on the pressure the boy would experience to stay on at school. There was a lot of talk around that. Now, in Group 2, the focus was quite different. Generally, in the group, the focus was on one of the subjects, which was design, and the helping people thing. And this is just an observation of mine. It seemed to me there was a slight battle of the sexes in the second group, because the women in the second group were quite strenuously at times resisting what I thought were, and they seemed to think were, male stereotypes of jobs that girls should go for.
In your project, what did you find out about teachers' attitudes to boys and girls?
Well, they were certainly different. They treated them differently in the classroom. They interacted much more with boys, gave them more time and attention, although they weren't aware that they were doing this. They also seem to have different expectations of girls and boys. They expect girls to be less good at science, and they expect them, well, they don't really think very much about whether they're going to have careers or not. They tend to assume that they're going to be traditional housewives, and therefore the education is perhaps not quite so important for them as it is for boys, although I think that's beginning to change.
Just to recap a bit on what we were doing yesterday, I think the main things I was...
Many women find that when they leave school, they have little or no knowledge of science and technology, and are having to return for further education to make up for everything they have missed.
No, it will, yeah, because fool me, I know that letters and numbers
yeah, it's true.
Helen, why is it you came on the course?
Well, I wasn't very interested in science at school, and when I got to about 16, 17, I realised that I thought I'd missed out on doing sciences when I was at school. But I think it's the same as most young girls are pressurised into doing what their peers are doing. That is social, English, history and such like. And it was seen as science was seen as a hard subject, a boys' subject, something girls didn't do. And I just followed everybody else, really, and realised it was too late.
At school, yeah, well, because it's part of the school thing, yeah. But I didn't have an interest in it because it's like you're mainly encouraged to think of, like, when you leave school, you'll go on to being a typist, and so there's no need to follow science.
Little has changed since Joyce went to school. These girls are following a course on office skills. To many, this might seem the ideal opportunity to learn about computers. But they're learning to type on machines which are 20 years old. There is one inadequate word processor for up to 60 pupils, so the amount of time the girls spend on it can only be regarded as cosmetic. Usually, in schools, the best equipment is kept for mathematics and the sciences. Secretarial courses are under-resourced.
Yet, if the resource problem could be solved, and girls got unlimited and uncontested access to computers in such courses, is this the right way to introduce them to the new technology? Or is it just reinforcing the same old images of what girls do?
In Croydon, information technology has been made a compulsory subject. A project has been devised with the Equal Opportunities Commission to provide a syllabus and content which does not discriminate against girls.
OK, today and for the next few weeks, we're going to be looking at the information technology family. And in particular, we're going to be looking at the Thompson family. Now, Dr. Thompson and her husband, Mr. Thompson, grandfather George, Tracy and Brian. Now, Mr. Thompson is a self-employed builder, and he spends a lot of time designing extensions for people. And we're going to be looking at a computer program today that enables Mr. Thompson to do that very thing.
Within the option system, often computer studies was matched with something like French, which the girls liked to take, and they considered that was their subject, so it was divided that way, and many girls didn't take it. Now, with the information technology, we thought it would be for the first 3 years of secondary school, and everyone would take it.
Croydon has tried to remove anything mathematical or scientific from computing in order to sell it to girls. Here, both girls and boys are learning how to plan furnishing in a sitting room.
Set a bit sloppy around there. So looking up. That's it. Stop. Toe.
We don't actually learn about the inside of the computer. We don't learn how it works. But we give everyone a chance to have some hands-on experience, which is what enough for everyone. And the girls learn word processing. They learn to use programs which would be helpful to them later on in careers or just, in their home lives.
You finished it? Are you happy with exactly how it's done?
Unfortunately, this approach seems to rest upon an assumption that prejudges the scientific abilities and the interests of girls. It's ironic that in our increasingly technological society, the computer is being used in schools to reinforce the stereotype of the unmathematical and unscientific girl. Why, for instance, do girls not learn about programming?
It's something which really isn't in their nature. They seem to like to use software which has been developed which causes them to think along different lines. I mean, to program is something mathematically based in many people's minds. They say it isn't, but I'm not a mathematician, and I find that trying to learn to program in BASIC needs a mathematical mind, and girls just don't have it.
It's often said that girls dislike maths and aren't very good at it. This is then taken as a reason why computers should be separated as far as possible from the mathematics and scientific areas. Yet there's absolutely no reason why girls can't be as good at maths as boys, and they are wrongly seen as being less able and perhaps less adventurous in that subject. The one thing that the computer has provided is a way to get over this rather negative relationship of girls and their mathematics.
These girls are so keen and eager that they come in early to school to pursue their mathematics classwork on the computer. Their teacher, Julianne Edwards, thinks it's the classroom atmosphere that's important.
I don't think the girls would come in early in the morning to use the computer if I wasn't a woman. In the classroom situation, I don't think it makes all that much difference if the environment is right for them. But I think it becomes more important as they go on in the school because the constraints of the exam system remove a lot of the areas that girls are confident in.
What is important about the classroom atmosphere is that the children are able to pace themselves in a non-competitive way. Computers are used just as casually as calculators. Many people still think of maths as a set of rules where answers are either right or wrong. A computer language such as Logo can be used to liberate school maths from boring, rule-bound methods and provoke children to investigate mathematics on their own.
Pen, I can't see it now.
In the right sort of learning environment and with the right sort of software, such as Logo, girls can see mathematics as interesting and useful for themselves and are keen, eager and confident to explore it further.
These girls are catching their bus to their future. It's the WISE bus, part of a large government-funded campaign to attract and encourage girls to take up mathematics, science and engineering. The reasons for the campaign are partly to further equal opportunities for women and partly based on economic necessity. The country faces a massive shortfall of qualified scientists, engineers and technicians. There is an equal role for women in the emerging industries and jobs of tomorrow. The computer could and should have an important place in furthering women's entry into these areas.
Now here, the computer doesn't know the difference between black and white just yet. Now you want to show it the difference between the black and the white.
This is a compulsory woodwork class for girls at a school in Stevenage. All pupils have to do all the craft subjects in the first 3 years. It's part of a special programme to encourage girls to choose technical subjects and to see them as a normal part of their lives.
In the first 2 years, all boys and girls have experience of all the craft design technology area and home economics and needlework and those activities. But in the third year, children had been allowed to opt for what particular subjects they wanted to do. And we realised that most of the girls had chosen to do what had traditionally been regarded as girls' subjects, and the boys went into their craft subjects. And we felt that that was part of the problem, because with girls dropping subjects for a whole year, they were unlikely to take up technical subjects in the fourth year, having not studied them for a whole year. So the first thing we did was to change the timetable and the curriculum to enable girls to do that.
Pippa Evans participated in this programme and is amongst a minority of girls across the country who are learning to use computers.
So we've got that right. This lead should go from the emitter through to the...
Her class is part of TVEI, the Technical and Vocational Education Initiative. It's funded in schools by the Manpower Services Commission, who require a reasonable balance of the sexes on the course. But in the first year, there were only 5 girls out of a total of 32. Staff were forced to examine why girls weren't choosing to do technical subjects like computer studies.
Well, on the TVEI course I chose computer studies, electronic instrumentation and office skills, and then my other subjects were biology and French. If you haven't got some sort of knowledge of a computer or things like that these days, there's not very much prospects for a job.
And what sort of encouragement did you get at school?
Well, when I asked for information, my teachers were very enthusiastic and they talked to me about it. But Mr. Tam was very encouraging. He tried to talk me into it because he was pleased that a girl would be interested.
Counselling and encouragement for girls to continue studying technical subjects played an important part in guiding them when they came to make their decisions. Often, girls who don't have a firm idea what they want to do will think of becoming secretaries. But here, these girls are not allowed to ignore the mathematical and scientific options.
What sort of program are you going to use for it?
Shortest time.
If she has any ideas of trying to progress up the ladder from being a straightforward secretary, it is inevitably an advantage if she has some background knowledge of what the industry that she's working in is actually going to do. And therefore, we tend to recommend that children who are doing that sort of thing should look at the areas of manufacturing technology, for instance, as well as secretarial practice or information technology.
What Stevenage has achieved is impressive, but the impetus for this programme was powerful. 2 years ago, they faced the possibility of losing their funding because in the first year, there weren't enough girls on the course. Now they have a 50-50 balance between the sexes. Obviously, where there's a will, there's a way for equal opportunities. But this is an unusual and rare example.
As the importance of computers grows in our society, it is essential that girls and young women understand the new technology on equal terms with men. At present, girls are not being given appropriate support for their learning about the new technology, and there is little effort to introduce them to the full range of computer use. A computer, after all, is not just a thing that girls like or don't like, can cope with or can't cope with. Reactions to the computer depend on what we put in them and how we choose to incorporate them into our educational system.
Provided they can get over any initial fear of machines, girls are good at computing and enjoy it. And the education system must take seriously the problem of their possible alienation. The promise of computers is that they can improve the traditional content and ways of learning in schools. This would be an advantage for all children, and especially girls in the mathematical and scientific areas. The threat of computers is that a situation of disadvantage for girls could be made still worse.